Welcome to the 29 for 29 podcast. 29 for 29 is an initiative to enable, amplify, and support young climate change makers in the run up to COP29. Our mission is to amplify their voices and to give them a platform to share their stories and to inspire people. So, here today we're joined by Sheikh Imran. Welcome, Imran. We're so glad to have you on our podcast today. How do you feel?
Hi, Ramsha. Thank you for the introduction. And yeah, I feel good to be here, to be part of this 29 for 29 cohort, and to share this space with other amazing young leaders, and also to learn from the previous cohorts and all the amazing work that has been going on. So yeah, incredible feeling to be here and really happy to share my experiences and my little stories from my work in agriculture.
Wonderful. So, let's begin. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work?
Yes, perfect. So, my name is Sheikh Imran Hussain Chaudhry. I am from Hyderabad. I am 23 years old right now, and I am an agriculturist. I graduated my degree in agriculture in 2023, which is last year. And me and a friend of mine started the small company called Prakriti Agrologics in 2020. So, we are a registered company based out of Bangalore, and what we primarily do is we provide biodiversity services and we promote agrobiodiversity with small farmers. That's just a small part of what we do. And apart from that, I'm really passionate about sustainable agriculture, bringing some transformation in food systems, and supporting our farmers in the way they grow, in what they grow, to make sure our farmers are making better incomes. The cultivation is more sustainable, and making sure the consumers, which is us, the food we get is clean and we know where it's coming from. That has been the core vision between whatever we're doing with Prakriti and also with the youth advocacy that I'm involved in. Part of some youth groups like Youngo, the Indian Youth Climate Network. So through all these channels, I've been trying to push towards spreading sustainability in agriculture.
That's really impressive, I must say. I'd like to ask you, what inspired you to join the climate movement, and how has your journey been up until now?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a smooth sailing journey, I'd say, because we're talking about climate here. And to be honest, what inspired me is when I actually stepped into fields. I started working with farmers way back in 2020. That's how we started our journey. To give you some more context, when COVID hit, I was in the first year of college. We were just heading into second year, and we had to rush back home. And it felt very weird to me that I'm studying agriculture, but I don't get to practice agriculture, right? So that was a very odd thought. And a friend of mine had the same thought. So both of us, me and my friend Arkesh, so we both joined forces because we were very passionate about the same things: sustainable agriculture, agroecology, how we can conserve native biodiversity, and how we can preserve and conserve the lost foods which were present in our country for ages, but we don't have them now. So we started volunteering at a farm, which was about 60, 70 kilometers from Bangalore. So we were on the farm for about 6 months, and we were staying there. We were working on various projects. It was like a huge land, and we could do whatever we want in terms of experimenting with agrobiodiversity. And that's when we got started. Actually, we had the resources and the time to actually work with farmers, and build that initial foundation of whatever we are doing right now, and to understand how agriculture in reality works. And it's quite different from what you learn in the books, right? So what happens on the ground, what's happening in the books, is it's a stark difference. So we started working there, and that's when I realized the various pain points farmers are facing, right? And these pain points start even before the climate conversation starts, right? Climate comes in afterwards, and there's many things which are happening right before that, in the way you produce, the cost of production, the things you used to produce, or the decision behind what you're producing. And then comes the communication part, like who informs these farmers about how the climate is changing. How can they change their methodologies based on this information? So there are so many pain points, so many gaps, and so many things which were absent, and this was common across various areas, right? Because we started working in that small village, 60 kilometers from Bangalore. Then we started working on a project in Chikmagalur. Then we moved to working in Kerala and Wayanad. So different places, but the story remains the same of how our farmers are struggling. And that's when we realized we have to change the way we approach this. So we initially started out with promoting agrobiodiversity, and we were very happy about collecting seeds, saving traditional seeds, talking to farmers, exchanging it with them. And we have currently a seed bank of 400 plus varieties with us, which we often exchange with people and give it to them, give it to farmers for free. And we try to maintain this seed bank as much as possible. But the reality was, transition to these varieties, even though they are drought resistant or more climate resilient, might look better or exotic. Some of them might fetch better market prices if you label it as exotic. But the sad reality was there was no market available for this. An average farmer living in a remote area could no way access a supply chain to sell these vegetables and make a profit out of it. So these were some of the problems we realized, and then that's when I came to the conclusion that market determines everything. Economic resilience is what can fight climate change, especially with smallholder farmers. So that was one of the inspiration, or I might say observation, over the last 3 years, which have pushed me in this direction, from just working on agrobiodiversity and conservation to moving to making sure the economics are right first. The farmers are making money first, then using that to incentivize them to transition or switch to a more sustainable system. So that has been the journey so far with me and Prakriti.
Wow, no, like you said, it's been not been a linear journey, and it's quite interesting to know, the gaps between theory and practice in agriculture. And I'm glad there are people like you on ground who are tackling the practical aspects of it. So kudos to you for that. But I would like to ask you though, do you know or do you know of any specific reforms or solutions that are urgently needed to make agriculture a lot more climate resilient than it currently is?
Yeah, I think one of the core reforms that we have been trying to work on an individual level, also advocating for it on various platforms, is formalizing agroecology as a system. It is a way of growing, of course, but we want more recognition for agroecology or natural farming or other sustainable technologies. They come in various names and forms and change from area to area. So we want more recognition for these practices or the produce that comes out of it, so that farmers can get the right price for their produce. Because the core problem has been over the years, if you see, the cost of producing food has gone up drastically. But the cost we pay to farmers has remained more or less same to maintain food security. So this is a balance which is tough to maintain. Agricultural household incomes have gone up in the last 10 years or 12 years only by about 15 to 18%. But their income from crop sale has come down by 3-4% in the same time period. So we can see there are some differences. The numbers are not making sense when farmers are producing, and this is something that I experienced myself when I went to a farmer in Chikmagalur. They were selling their tomatoes for 3 rupees a kg, or probably even lesser, because the ecosystem does not exist in many places to support farmers. Because agriculture is not just about planting a seed, growing, you get a fruit, it reaches a market. It's not just about that, but it's about the logistics, the input costs, the advisory that comes with it, the research organizations, the researchers. It's a huge network, and then at the center of it is the farmer, right? So the core reform is we listen to farmers, we make them the center of the conversation, listen to their pain points, formalize the inputs given by them. right? And also work on the price part of it, so that not only when you're organic certified, or if you have some certification, you receive a higher margin, but also for practicing good agricultural practices. So more transparency, better access to markets, and better prices to farmers. This can go a long way in directly impacting climate change, because ultimately this is all about climate resilience. So this will help farmers push towards transition. So this is what we've been trying to do, also with Prakriti, and also with our recommendations whenever we're at the SB60 or at COP. So this has been the core goal, to include market access as an adaptation indicator, or to somehow make sure we solidify farmers' stake in markets, and make sure they are in charge of their food and the prices. Yeah.
Um, that's a very thoughtful suggestion and solution suggested by you. And I really hope that it's worked upon, because in recent times, the government has also been passing a lot of, we can say, controversial pieces of legislations or policies which haven't been accepted, but there is effort in this direction. And I hope in the coming years it materializes. Wonderful. So now I'd like to ask you that, since you're a young leader yourself, how do you view the role of young leaders in shaping the future of food systems, particularly in the global south?
Yeah, I think young people play the most important role right now. Like all the problems we discussed prior, regarding market, sustainable transition, farmers, policies by government and also by international governments, the solution to this can be youth. Because one of the biggest pain points, at least in agriculture in India, has been the decreasing public investment in agriculture. If you go to urban areas, there's a startup ecosystem. If you are into manufacturing or value chain addition, there's so many things to support you. There are 10 different startups to help you with logistics, with value addition, with finances, so many other things. But when you enter rural India or more agricultural areas of the country, there is a severe lack of this ecosystem. Although there are agencies like NABARD, SFAC, the ICAR, and their Krishi Vigyan Kendra across the country, they're doing phenomenal job in increasing this outreach. But the need is so vast that we need more public investment and more people to come in to this space, the agriculture space, and to start working on solutions so that farmers can benefit from this. And farmers themselves can be the solution makers. And this is where the young people come in. Like young people are now transitioning in rural India into different parts of the value chain. Now they're starting their own advisory centers, they're starting their own input centers, they are starting they're diversifying their farms by bringing in more cash crops or some exotic crops or more climate resilient crops. They're processing it, they're packaging it. And so ever since farmer producer organizations have started coming up, the government is also promoting them. We're on route to create 10,000 FPOs in the country, and young people are integrating into this seamlessly as CEOs of the FPO, or handling the finances of the FPO, or supporting other roles in an FPO, because FPO is like a company. Each farmer is a shareholder, right? And they're all collecting their resources to make a larger profit from their efforts. And such efforts is where youth can bring in new technologies if they come across it, or value addition, or taking it to urban areas. There have been initiatives like the ONDC by the government, which is making it easier for people to access e-commerce. So young people are bridging the gap between technology and schemes, grants, and also climate resilience. Right, there has been an increasing shift in different forms of food systems. Like young people are making fruit forests in villages. They're making hydroponic farms. They're converting farms to natural farming. So although there's a lot more scope out there, it can be formalized if we build an ecosystem around it and support the whole you know uh, the process of this transition happening, and young people participating in this, especially in terms of finance, capacity building. Each area has scope of improvement, but I can see that it is changing. It is slowly happening. Slowly young people are looking into agriculture as a successful avenue. It is no longer looked down upon. So it is an opportunity. It is another area where startups can come. More entrepreneurs can come, and all of this is going to help farmers. All of this is going to help us become more climate resilient, because this is just another opportunity for farmers to be in control of their production, be in control of the farms. Farmers are willing to transition. They have a lot of traditional knowledge which is passed on from generation to generation. That is how the natural farming boom took place in India. It is the farmers who got the knowledge. It's not something we have magically researched upon, right? So using things like Jivamrut, Bijamrut, these are all natural farming techniques which have been used by our farmers for from years. So now the ecosystem is coming up. So this is leading to FPOs which are focused on natural farming, more collectives and cooperatives coming up in sustainable food production. So these are all areas where young people come in. They have already started making changes. More young people are also studying agriculture to get into the science behind it, research on various topics. So I think down the line we're going to see a lot more young people participating in this, both on a national level, international level, on a rural level. But the core of it is, we need this food system transformation, and young people will be the leaders to make it happen.
I really hope that that happens because our planet needs all the young people that it can muster to kind of fight the specter of climate change. So I agree. I'd like to ask you that you've been involved in both grassroots initiatives as well as high level advocacy work, right? For instance, your work in advancing food systems at COP29. So, my question was, how do you bridge the gap between global climate policy and on the ground action in rural farming communities?
Yeah, based on my experience, the global climate discussion is not inclusive enough, right? Inclusive enough, especially of the global south. There are farmers in Africa, in small island nations, in low and middle income countries, countries even like India, where our voices are not rightfully represented in these conversations. Not just the conversations happening at these conferences, but also in the negotiation rooms, right? So the biggest issue is there is no way we should let farmers, especially smallholder farmers, face the risks and the burden of mitigation, right? So it is the governments and it is all the people in the ecosystem and other stakeholders who are supposed to assist farmers, and not rather blame them. So this is something that needs to be, put in bold in these conversations, that we need to listen to farmers. We need to listen to their pain points. How can we address transition without addressing the finances and the economic problems? So it just cannot be enforced upon countries, especially countries like India, which are so agriculture dependent and agricultural economies, where a vast majority of our youth is in agriculture, right? So enforcing this just leads to further driving us away from climate change. More farmers are leaving agriculture, especially now that COVID has ended, people are again migrating back to urban areas or peri-urban areas, or there is also rural migration. So migration happens on various phases, and this has affected wages in rural India. This has affected how we farm, what we farm, and there's so many other issues. So we have to make sure that we are strong in our stance, especially as an agricultural economy, that voices of our farmers come first, their pain points come first. And this is what we have been advocating, especially in terms of climate finance. We need more finance to support agroecology transition. Has been part of our recommendations to various countries. And just transition. When we talk about just transition, we have to make sure that this agroecological transition benefits are going to farmers, or the risk involved in transition is being mitigated, so that these farmers can continue with transition. Or if transition funds are being allocated, they go to the individual themselves and not to upper tiers, and we hope for them to trickle down. we need as much direct support as possible. So this is what we have been trying to do, especially when I was at SB and also the upcoming COP. My goal has been to be the voice of these farmers and to be the gap, to have a conversation with both sides to understand what the policymakers are looking at and how they're looking at it, and how this makes sense to our farmers, or what kind of recommendations can be made to them. But again, these are two different worlds: the policy world on a global platform, and a farmer working in India. Uh, these are two different worlds, and by the time these conversations reach the grassroots, it's going to take time. But again, we cannot lose any opportunity to have this conversation and to represent our farmers. So this is something we've been trying to do, and of course working with various other partners at these spaces, so that any benefit and every benefit we can get for our farmers can be availed, especially for food systems transformation. So that has been the core goal.
No, rightly said. With this, I think we have reached the end of our podcast. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and insights with us. I think I got to personally learn a lot from the podcast, and hoping our viewers do the same. Wishing you the best for the future. I hope you continue your amazing work and bring about change in the agricultural sector. And thank you so much for joining us for the podcast today. Would you like to say a few words before we end?
Yeah, thank you for having me on board. And thanks to MASH for providing this platform where the climate dialogue, especially with young people, is also now inclusive of agriculture. More people are talking about agriculture, biodiversity, land restoration. So these are very important topics, and farmers are at the front line of climate change. And trust me, once you go to any of these areas like rural India where agriculture is happening, you will notice climate changing every single day. You will notice the effects of climate change every single day, and you can notice its effects not just on the health, not just on the well-being, but also the way you live, because your income is hit, your quality of life is hit. So these are very difficult conversations in life, when communities are at such a front line and agriculture is at the front line. And once our agriculture collapses, there is no scope of talking about climate in the first place. So we cannot afford to reach that stage, and just be focused on the upper issues of climate change. So I would urge more young people to participate and build this ecosystem. Start your startups. There are many grants out there, many funding agencies. The government of India is very supportive of many of the grants. There are external governments who are also willing to support initiatives in India. So avail these grants, take the risk, and build some good enterprises out of it, because there is a huge opportunity for this, and there is a lot that can be done, especially by young people. And this is at this stage, the space is not so restrictive and discriminative between young people or older people. If you have solutions, you can come on board and you can work. Farmers are happy to help with anyone and everyone. uh, so that is how I've been learning from farmers. Whatever I know is all learned from farmers and traveling to farms in different parts of the country and living, especially in areas like Wayanad. I've been there for the last 1 year, and I've witnessed disasters, climate changing, people losing money, farmers losing money year on year, season on season. So these are the realities. But with the right ecosystem, all of this can be mitigated. Farmers can benefit, and eventually, climate will also benefit and help us. And this will trickle down to the urban areas and the food we eat and our health and our nutrition. And this goes a long way. So it's a very multifaceted conversation. So it is important that we participate in health, climate, food, farmers, and everything included. So that's all I would like to urge about or advocate about. And anyone can reach out to me. We can have a conversation about it, and look for solutions. We'll see how we can figure out solutions and help farmers out. So that has been the only outcome and the core idea of this whole conversation. And that's what I would like to advocate for. So yeah, once again, thanks to MASH for making it happen and the 29 for 29 cohort. uh, to such an amazing platform.